Well, we are coming down to what we're all been waiting for, the Commissioner's State of Higher Education. I again want to thank you on behalf of the coordinating board for your leadership and for being here for this outstanding conference. We've had a great conference, a great highest turnout ever. So we thank you for being engaged and being part of the conversation and contributing to higher education in the state of Texas. So the panelists have done a great job. It's now my privilege to introduce and to close out the conference our esteemed Commissioner of Higher Education. Dr. Keller, of course, needs no introduction, but he will give our state of higher education. He, as we said earlier, been now over 3 years as our commissioner, and it's a pleasure to work alongside him, along with our board, to continue to improve higher education. I hope that you've picked up a lot of key initiatives and ideas that are going on around the state. And again, we thank you for your leadership. Please join me in welcoming my friend and colleague, Commissioner Harrison Keller. Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Frias, for the introduction. And I want to say thanks to all our board members who helped with this year's conference. So I'm grateful for our board's support and your dedication to Texas students and our great colleges and universities. I want to acknowledge all the regents, the trustees, chancellors, and presidents here. So I appreciate your service to your institutions and your participation in our discussions these last 2 days. We've also this year had great representation from chambers of commerce, from philanthropy, from other partners. So thank you, everyone, for being here. So the shared commitment to expanding opportunity through higher education has come through loud and clear. I also want to say that I'm grateful to our sponsors, including Google, as our presenting sponsor, as well as Educate Texas, Greater Texas Foundation, the Texas Business Leadership Council, TLL Temple Foundation, Trellis Foundation, Lumina Foundation, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So your generosity helped us make this conference bigger and even more impactful this year, so thank you. And then finally, I want to take a moment to thank our own coordinating board team who've made this year's event possible. So we aim to raise the bar this year and to have more people participate with us, and that could not have happened without our dedicated team behind the scenes. So I want to say especially thank you for our coordinating board team for putting together the conference. Thank you. So let me tell you, when I took on this role of commissioner just a little over 3 years ago, I never could have imagined the trajectory like what we've experienced. So within 6 months of my appointment, we were facing a global pandemic. We experienced disruptions in every facet of our personal and professional lives, in our global, our national, our state economies, in our higher education institutions, and of course for our students and our families. So we faced together historic unemployment. We had rapid enrollment declines in our colleges and our universities, and we had profound uncertainty about our futures. And many of our own families experienced financial and health crises and lost loved ones. And while all those experiences will always be with us, we came through, we adapted, and today our future in Texas has never looked brighter. So our Texas economies come roaring back, and Texas continues to set records for jobs created and for individuals and companies moving here. We had a combination of steady policy leadership, strong business climate, abundant natural resources, and a young, dynamic population. And together, that means that Texas is positioned to lead the way. Now, Texas higher education is going to have unique roles and responsibilities in what comes next to expand opportunities for all Texans and to ensure our economic competitiveness on a global scale. So as I contemplate the current state and the future of Texas higher education, it's clear to me that how fully we realize this potential to ensure competitive and prosperous Texas through 2030, 2050, and beyond will depend on how we navigate 3 key challenges. So first, educational attainment. So the pandemic accelerated changes that were already underway in our economy, and how we work, and the kinds of jobs available, and the kinds of credentials and degrees and certificates that are required to fill those jobs. So as you all heard, in September, job openings in Texas reached an all-time high of more than 1 million jobs. And you heard from the chairman of the Workforce Commission that for about half of those jobs, for about 500,000 jobs right now, employers are having trouble finding the skilled workers they need. And the pace of change isn't slowing down. So our best estimates are that by 2030, more than 60% of all the jobs across Texas are going to require education and training beyond high school diplomas. So today, only about 48% of our working age population holds a post-secondary degree or certificate. Now, even as our state continues to set records for growth, for job creation, this gap between the educational attainment of our workforce and employers' needs presents a challenge today and for the long term. Now, Texas is going to continue to add jobs because of our favorable business climate, but our long-term competitiveness is going to depend not only on our ability to create and attract a large quantity of jobs, but also on our ability to attract, retain, and create high-quality jobs. And those high-quality jobs increasingly require education and training beyond high school. Next to inflation, educational attainment presents the most significant drag on our state's economy. Second, in workforce education. So during the pandemic, we had hundreds of thousands of Texans who not only found themselves out of work, but suddenly needing additional training and credentials to get a new job, and sometimes to get a new job in the same industry. So our economy is changing faster than anyone anticipated in those directions that require more education beyond high school diplomas, from short-term workforce credentials to graduate degrees. While that need to reskill and upskill our workforce is urgent and it's growing, we do not yet have the workforce education infrastructure we need to meet our employers' needs into the future. For decades, state policies focus more on these traditional academic pathways and more on our younger populations rather than workforce preparation and our working age adults. So let me give you one example. It's like in the decade before the pandemic, our enrollments of high school students in community college academic dual credit programs increased by more than 90,000. While in workforce education, the community college enrollments actually declined more than 78,000. And what that data illustrates is the importance of aligning our state policy and aligning the incentives with our goals. So for the dual credit programs, we had aligned state finance policy, and that fueled rapid growth. On the workforce education side, we didn't align our funding system with our goals, and we actually lost ground. Now let me be clear, we all have a lot of work to do together with public schools to improve college readiness of our graduates, to shore up direct-to-college enrollment rates, especially for low-income students, and to expand our teacher preparation pipelines. But in workforce education, we have even more work to do. Together in partnership with employers, so all Texas students will have opportunities to develop the knowledge and skills and earn the credentials of value that good jobs require. Third is in research and development. So competitiveness in every industry and the strength of our state and national economies and even our national security increasingly depend on how well we're going to compete at the frontiers of knowledge and discovery. Today, Texas is the 9th largest economy in the world. Yet we still only have 3 public universities that are regularly counted in the top 200 in the world. And too few of our Texas residents are earning credentials in high-demand fields, especially in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. in each of these three broad areas, so around educational attainment, workforce education, and research and development. I think it's important for us to be clear about the challenges we face. Now, these challenges aren't arising because of a lack of committed higher education leaders, first-class workforce education programs, or groundbreaking research, development, and innovation efforts. Now, in every case, we can point to dozens of inspiring examples at our Texas institutions. You got to see some of them up here on the panels. You got to interact with our Star Award winners. The heart of the matter is that the expectations for higher education have changed. And they're changing faster than anyone anticipated. So now there's a significant disconnect between the scale of our needs in each of these areas versus what our higher education institutions and our state policies were designed to do. Now, that accelerating pace of change is the main reason that in the midst of the pandemic, the coordinating board and the Texas Higher Education Foundation set out together to update the state strategic plan for higher education. So our new plan that the board formally adopted early this year is Building a Talent Strong Texas. And Building a Talent Strong Texas was developed with input from hundreds of policymakers, employers, community leaders, educators, and thousands of individual Texans. And I know there's plenty of colleagues here who were instrumental on shaping that plan. And together, we developed three broad goals for tackling our state's most critical challenges: to improve educational attainment, to increase our production of credentials of value, and to bolster research and development. So we adopted a goal for at least 60% of our entire working age population to have a degree, certificate, or other credential of value by 2030. And again, we're not talking about just any credentials. Texas is the first state to condition our goals for higher education completion on the value of those credentials to individuals and employers in our state economy. We also adopted a goal for 95% of our undergraduates to complete their credentials either with no debt at all or debt that should be manageable given the value of those credentials. We also set targets for drawing down an additional $1 billion a year in federal and private sponsored research dollars and increasing our production of research doctorates by 2,000 students a year. Now, these are ambitious goals, and they're designed to ensure that Texas can maintain and advance our competitive position in the global economy with clear guidance to our policymakers, to our institutions, and to our state agencies. As you all think about this, and as you contemplate your systems or your institutions' roles in building a talent-strong Texas, I'd like to call out a couple of points for your consideration. So first of all, to realize the vision that we've outlined in the plan at the state level and across every system and institution, we must recommit ourselves to expanding equity of opportunity. Over this past decade, we added more residents than any state. We added nearly 4 million people. 95% of that growth was in communities of color. If we do not advance our goals equitably, we cannot achieve our goal. And the second point is just consider the magnitude of what Texas needs from higher education through 2030. We're aiming to increase the production of Texans who earn credentials of value by more than 200,000 each year. 200,000. And we can't get there by tinkering around the margins and just doing a little more of what we've already been doing. Because the truth is, every individual Texas college and university could make progress every year, and together we could still fail to deliver what our communities, our employers, and our state need from higher education. To realize the vision of building a talent-strong Texas, we have to encourage and engage many more students earlier in the pipeline, well before their high school graduation. We have to enroll far more adults in high-quality programs designed and offered together in partnership with employers. And we have to ensure that many more of our students succeed. We have to achieve impact at scale, impact as big as Texas. Now, the good news is we already have a lot of strong momentum. Because in higher education, the silver lining in all those disruptions we experienced these past 2 years was in how our colleges and universities accelerated the pace of innovation. At the coordinating board, we've been honored to support these efforts, especially because of the commitment of stimulus funds by Governor Abbott and our legislative leadership. Texas was one of only a few states to prioritize higher education for the distribution of Governor's Emergency Education Relief, or GEAR funds. By the end of this fiscal year, we will have deployed about $360 million for student financial aid for innovative programs and new support structures for higher education. Nearly $200 million in GEAR funds have been dedicated to student financial aid, including support for students in short-term workforce programs and for students transferring from community colleges to universities. The GEAR funds allowed us to provide nearly $100 million to our institutions to support educational innovation efforts, and that includes support for dozens of public and independent colleges and universities that are working together to improve and expand their evidence-based student success initiatives, to innovate their nursing education programs, and redesign their teacher preparation pipeline. We're also supporting dozens of faculty-led projects to redesign individual courses with new technologies. Right now, we have a coalition of Texas nursing schools, and they're developing a competency-based digital curriculum to help transform nursing education around the state and around the world. We've also provided targeted funding to our community colleges, Texas State Technical Colleges, and our state colleges so they can start up and expand high-demand workforce education programs. Our coordinating board team has been working closely with stakeholders along the way, also to stand up new state infrastructure to better support institutions, students, and the public. So over the next few months, we'll be rolling out that new state data infrastructure with tools to expedite institutions' data submissions, with real-time data dashboards to support management decisions, including that data about labor market information you're asking for. Those are going to include new dashboards about the value of our credentials in the Texas labor market and distributions of student debt. Later this year, we're also going to be releasing that one-stop advising portal called My Texas Future. Now, many of you all got to see the preview yesterday of My Texas Future. So together with our partners in the Governor's Tri-Agency Initiative, we're curating and we're creating online tools so we can drive traffic to one place. So students go one place to explore their opportunities, develop plans, and get connected to your institution so they can achieve their goals, so they can advance their careers, so they can realize their dreams. Through these kinds of efforts across our colleges and university campuses, our system offices, and our state agencies, and thanks to strong partnerships with employers and philanthropy, Texas is leading the way. And now, the stage has been set for even deeper work that will define the next era of Texas higher education and take all this exciting work to scale. So as you heard, the 88th Texas legislature will have unprecedented resources at its disposal. First on the legislative agenda for higher education is going to be improving affordability and access for all Texas students, from those high school students in dual credit courses to current college students to adult learners needing to reskill and upskill. I think everyone here and all of our institutional and system leaders agree that affordability in higher education has to be a shared responsibility. That direct state support for our institutions enables them to operate and keep tuition affordable. And state and institutional investments in financial aid keep higher education accessible for students and families. We're also going to need state support to accelerate the groundbreaking work that's already underway across our institutions to support student success. That includes stronger academic advising. That includes better mental health services for students. The most important way that we can ensure a return on investment for individual students, their families, and for the taxpayers is to make sure our students stay on track and earn credentials of value. As we just discussed, this legislative session is also going to offer a historic opportunity to improve community college finance. Community colleges are going to have an increasingly vital role to play as we realize our vision for building a talent-strong Texas through 2030 and beyond. We need to rapidly expand our short-term workforce programs that are aligned with employers' needs, improve access and quality in our dual credit programs, and dramatically increase the numbers and diversity of students who successfully transfer to universities or complete credentials of value. But as many of you know, today our community college finance system isn't aligned with any of these goals. The majority of state formula funding for community colleges is based on historical course enrollments. Community colleges can increase their enrollments, improve outcomes, and lose state funding. There's no recognition for those higher costs of educating students who need more support, or the higher costs of operating small and rural colleges. So as you just heard, last year, the Texas Commission on Community College Finance, with legislators, community college leaders, and members of the public, embarked on what was the most extensive effort any state has ever undertaken to align community college finance with state goals. I think Chairman Woody Hunt said it best in his letter that you'll see in the Commission's final report when he said, to solve these challenges, being incremental isn't enough. We need to be bold. We need a community college model. We need a funding model for our community college districts that is strategic, that's deliberately aligned with our emerging workforce needs, and that fosters a strong partnership between local community colleges in the state. So the Commission's recommendations include driving the majority of state funding through a dynamic, outcomes-based formula, substantial new investments in student financial aid, and targeted funding to expand high-demand workforce programs. Those recommendations have the unanimous support of college leaders across the state and strong support from the business community, and already this work is attracting national attention. So by enacting those kinds of groundbreaking reforms, the legislature can fundamentally change the game for community colleges, students, and our employers across the state. The upcoming session's also going to offer a once-in-a-generation opportunity to bolster our state's research and development infrastructure, especially by putting more of our universities and regional economies on track to compete in the global economy. In every sector, research, development, and the ability to translate insights into impact are increasingly going to determine the ability to compete. As the pace of change in the economy continues to accelerate, the strength of higher education research and development infrastructure is going to be a key driver of innovation, entrepreneurship, and the state's long-term competitiveness. Now, already, we've made some important progress there. So last session, the legislature expanded support for recruiting top talent to our universities through the Governor's University Research Initiative. Last session, the legislature committed more than $3 billion in one-time funds to improve university facilities. And now the legislature has a historic opportunity to accelerate this work so Texas can secure the top talent, external research funding, and venture capital that our state needs to stay competitive. As you all heard yesterday from Chairman Bonin, the legislative leadership expects to have a serious conversation about how to lift multiple universities into national and international prominence. And that work is vitally important for our institutions, our communities, and our regional and state economy. Throughout the legislative session and all these upcoming discussions about improving educational attainment, bolstering workforce education, and strengthening our research and development infrastructure, my coordinating board colleagues and I look forward to serving as a resource, as a partner, and as a constant advocate for Texas higher education. If you zoom out and you look at the history of American higher education, there's two other eras where technology and workforce needs changed rapidly, and there was a misalignment with what higher education institutions were designed to do. So you see this in the Industrial Revolution immediately after the Civil War. And then you see it again in the post-World War II era. And both of these were times of rapid experimentation and innovation in higher education. And the policy decisions and the investments in each of those two eras drove unbelievable eras of American prosperity and productivity. And now we find ourselves in another pivotal moment. This moment presents once-in-a-generation opportunities to take those lessons of the past and build on the progress we've already made, to make much more than marginal improvements and incremental investments in what we've already done. And again, things are changing faster than anyone expected, and the ways our colleges and universities are organized, the vast majority of our programs, and the structure of our higher education policies and our finance systems are not well aligned with the pace of change, the direction our economy is heading, or what employers need. How our policymakers and our education leaders respond now to strengthen Texas higher education may be the most important driver of Texas prosperity and competitiveness the decades ahead. Now is the time to provide far greater opportunities for all Texans to unlock their potential through Texas higher education, to educate many more people to higher standards than we've ever achieved before. Now is the time to embrace the essential role Texas higher education plays in transforming insights into impact for a better future, to clear the regulatory brush, get behind the innovators, and invest strategically so Texas institutions and Texas industry can compete at the frontiers of knowledge, discovery, and innovation. Now is the time to seize the vast Texas-sized opportunities before us to achieve impact at scale and dedicate ourselves to building a talent-strong Texas. Thank you all for your partnership. I look forward to working with you in the new year. So I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. God bless, and safe travels.